In my last video, I talked about this Parker vise that I have. Parker vises were made in Meriden, Connecticut. And if you recognize the name Parker, it's also the same company that made the Parker shotguns. They did beautiful jobs with the shotguns, and they also did a beautiful job with their vises. I showed you that there's that swivel feature that I really liked, how I can work on the different things at different angles. Another feature they had is on this bar, there's a little friction screw in the end of this turn screw, so I can set this so I can operate by one finger. It doesn't flop around. If I wanted to put a lot of torque on it, I moved one end and I got better leverage and I can really crank down and tighten things up. I usually keep it about middle position, and then I'll operate it's almost like a bank vault door. Winding that thing up. That's a real nice feature. But I talked about that swivel base. Well, not only does it have a great swivel base, but the locking mechanism is so rigid, so strong, that it's almost like working with a solid mount rigid vise. Once this wrench is pulled tight and this thing locks up, it's like this friction brake drum inside there, and this thing just does not rotate, will not swivel. Once it's locked up solid, and that's as big a feature as the ability to move in itself. So not only does it move, but once it's locked in place, it stays where it is. And I'll take you through, and I'll show you how that works, and then we'll take a look at the braking mechanism on this swivel vise. This is my Parker vise. It is a swiveling base. It must have been 30 years ago was the last time I had this apart, and I oiled it, greased it, cleaned it. But like I said, it's probably been about 30 years since I've had this apart. It sits here in the shop. I use it every day, so it doesn't really take a whole lot of wear. It's not left outside. It's not rusting, anything like that. It's been moved from one workshop to another. But in that time, it's just been the most reliable. If you look here, the jaws are open, and there's just no play. There's no wiggle. There's no slop. You're not going to get that from a Chinese vise. I mean, the fit is just incredible. This truly is a machinist vise. Very well made, and I challenge you to find one built this well nowadays. That's the reason I've kept this, and I haven't changed. I haven't upgraded. I've never felt the need to. When we flip the vise over, you'll see it has this very large bolt here. It's let's see if you can see the size here. It's a 1 1/4. I had to buy a 1 1/4 inch socket. I found an old Craftsman made in the USA at the used tool store. It fits on my old Craftsman wrench, but it takes an 1 1/4. Takes an 1 1/4 socket to get that off. And once we take that off, that's how we'll loosen this big old bolt, and that'll allow us to take that base right off. I've loosened up the brakes, so this whole thing will rotate. We'll take that bolt off and take this apart. Here you can see with the swivel base removed, I could, if I wanted to, bolt this down as a solid mount vise. It's got holes basically for mounting. We could mount this down as a solid mount vise. So if I wanted to, I could bolt this down and have a rigid vise. But I really do like that swivel base. I really do. I like being able to adjust the vise. I like being able to accommodate the work I'm doing. But you could, if you wanted to, mount this rigidly on the bench. This is the swivel base with the top of the vise removed, and you can see it looks just like a drum brake. With the vise here in place, you would tighten this bolt, and it pulls up this wedge shape, and as that pulls up, it expands these two rings. They expand up against the inside of that base, and it acts just like a brake. And then when you tighten this down, these expand, then your vise doesn't move. You'd loosen this up, these brakes would come in, these brakes, listen to me, these two jaws would come in, and this whole thing could slide. And as I would pull up on this wedge shape, let me take it out so you can see it. You can see it's wedge shaped. So as this would pull up, it would expand these basically brakes out, and that's what would keep the vise from swiveling. So this would be like a brake surface against the inside of a drum, like your brake shoes against the inside of a drum brake, and this is what's expanding those those brakes apart. So kind of a really cool design, you know, very, very close fitting. So as it expands, you can see the rub mark here. You can see that rub mark where that's that friction surface that keeps that vise from rotating. And you can see there's a little bit of shiny spot. That's where I'm gonna put a little grease on there. That's that shiny spot right there, so that'll make that brake work a little bit smoother. And we'll get this all cleaned up, put back together. I've got white lithium grease here on the bench. I keep a little acid brush in there so it's always ready. I'm just gonna hit those little shiny spots, put a little bit of white lithium grease on there, on that brake. Then we'll go put this back together. We'll set that in there, and we'll set this whole brake shoe down around it. And now when that'll take care of that brake locking device. Now at the top, the base is put on. I'll put a little bit of grease here on the threads, and we'll do a little bit around the top of that bolt. This is how this whole thing's going to go together. That'll thread in. There's probably a little tricky part here. Get those threads started. Once it starts threading in, then I can use the wrench to take it the rest of the way and tighten this down. Lift it up, and that'll lock into place. That'll get that kind of firm, and that is now one unit. If I loosen this up, now the base and the top will separate. There's my swiveling vise, and we'll lock it down, push that tight, and now that's all one unit. I'm not going to do a complete disassembly. I'm not going to take the screw out, but you can see inside there's the worm screw, and the threads look really good. They're nice and greased. I'm not going to really do much. I'll take a little bit of that lithium grease. I'll put it here on the movable jaw slide where it slides against the fixed jaw. And that's about all I'm going to really do for today. Like I said, this wasn't a problem. This is just something I just wanted to show off and brag about, that I do have a really cool Parker vise. Oh, there you go. The Cadillac of vices. Very well built, very sturdy, very solid. Like I said, it's like turning a bank vault door. But that's the inside of a Parker vise. You know a lot more about them now than you did before you watched the video, I hope. We'll see you in the next video. If you like this sort of stuff, let me know, and we'll do more gun stuff, we'll do more shop stuff. Whatever it is you want to see, let me know in the comments, and I'll try to make videos you want to watch. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video.